What up, what up, what up? It's the PAC, man. All things physician associate. And in this video, I want to talk to you guys about how to open your own practice, man. And I like to start by saying, one, this information is specific to the state of Florida, where I currently reside. Two, this is not financial advice. And three, I am not trying to open my own practice. However, I have classmates from PA school that are, so I'm pretty much like a fly on the wall with them, and I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can from them and be as helpful and resourceful as possible, so I could know. I love collecting data, man. And but here we go. So one, as a physician assistant currently, as of the recording of this video in 2022 in the state of Florida, a physician assistant cannot open a practice without a medical director. That's one. So who is a medical director? MD or DO. So you must have a supervising physician in order to open your own practice, right? So what does that mean? Does it mean you need to have the doctor working there too? No. A medical director is someone who assumes partial or all liability in the events of some litigation, right? Something went wrong. Who do we blame or partially blame? Well, we need a doctor. In this case, for a PA currently, we need a doctor to blame. So, all right. So doctors know how PAs operate, right? Let's say you have a relationship. Let's say you're a PA working with an MD, and you're like, "Hey, doc, you know how I do, doc. You know I take my profession very serious, my license very serious. I'm thinking of branching out and opening my own practice. Can you be my supervising physician still?" Now, if you and a doc have that kind of relationship, you will find docs that will assume that responsibility for some money, man. And that number, this is a ballpark figure, but that number is pretty industry standard. It's looking like about $10,000 a month, man. That's crazy to me, because it's a signature. Like, all that doc has to do is sign and agree that they are your medical director in your business. Let's say you open up, a corporation. Let's say whatever, you open up an LLC, it's your business, whatever the case may be. The MD is listed as medical director. You're listed as, president, CEO, whatever the case, but he's listed there as the director, and he or she. And by doing so, they're responsible, right? They were supposed to be directing medical related stuff, so something went wrong, so you're to blame. And that's gonna run you about $10,000 a month, man. And that's pretty standard, at least in the state of Florida. I don't know if it's more or less outside of here, but that's how much pretty much you're expecting to pay. So already when you're thinking, hey, let me open up a practice, you got overhead expenses, especially if you're in a brick and mortar, right? So you open up an actual building. All right, so you have the lease, right? The lease is probably going to be your biggest expense, unless you buy out the building, which is still an upfront expense, big expense. So let's say you lease, an office space. That's going to be the most expensive thing for you, right? Because they understand that there's going to be a medical office and there's going to be some money to be made here. So those lease payments are fairly high comparatively to their square footage. As one. And of course, location. And then two, your medical director is expensive. And then three, you have, staff. You have front desk, you have billing, you have referral coordinators, you have an office manager, you have medical assistants, a lab technician. If you have, if you're blood drawing, it's a lot of salaries per se. A lot of people on staff, front desk, a lot of people. And then, of course, supplies and utilities. It's a lot of expenses. Now, considering you just opened, no one knows you, and you're not a medical doctor, you got to figure out how to drive people into your practice. There's two ways of doing that. Target the patients or target the insurance, right? If you can land contract with insurance, the insurances for the most part, the insurances have a list of doctors that are within network. So if, for instance, a patient calls and says, hey, I just moved to this new zip code, I need primaries in my area that are in network, and if you're on that list, you at least have, a stream of patients that are being directed to you. Targeting the patients is more word of mouth than anything. Whatever bit of patients you do get come through the door, you gotta give 120%, which really in the medical field you should always be doing that. And then through word of mouth, I love my primary doctor for myself. So anytime anybody asks me, I don't care where you live, if you ask me, hey man, you have a good primary, yes, you should consider going to my primary. That's the best primary I've ever met. So in that case, like, it's a lot of overhead. Besides insurance, besides patients, you can also target Medicaid and Medicare. And so if you guys aren't familiar with Medicaid and Medicare, Medicaid is pretty much for like patients who don't earn enough to provide health care for themselves. Let's say they have low income, low reported income, they can apply for Medicaid. It's like the government has money that's allocated to help those in need, right? So then that money is for them. And Medicare is caring for those who can no longer care for themselves. So for instance, if you're over the age of 65, you can apply for Medicare, and or if you've been if you're on some type of disability or whatever reason you're no longer able to work, then you can apply for Medicare. Now I can tell you right now, Medicare is the mecca of reimbursement, in the sense of they don't do what we call fees for service. Let me explain that a little bit, the difference between capitation and fees for service. So a fee for service is you provide a service and you request a reimbursement, like a fee for that service that you provided. So like if you go into an orthopedic clinic with knee pain and they do a physical exam, they charge that code, they try to get reimbursed for that. And then let's say they start you on medication, you come back a week later, still in pain. Okay, we're gonna inject your knee now, right here, right now. Okay, that's another service that I provided, so that's gonna be a fee. Or we did an ultrasound in the office, or we did an x-ray. All that is a fee that they're constantly trying to reimburse. Capitation is Medicare or Medicaid. Sometimes they just look at your clinic and say, you know what, how many of our patients do you see? Oh, we have 1,000 of your 1,000 Medicare patients. Okay, on average, the reimbursement is, let's use a round number. Let's say on average, $100 a patient, right? Some patients you do a little more, so it's a little more. Some patients you do a little less, so it's a little less. But let's say on average, we give you back about $100 per patient, and you have about 1,000 patients of ours. So you know what, 100 times 1,000, we're just gonna give you that monthly, whether the patient shows up or not. Just keep them out of the hospital. The name of the game for Medicaid, Medicare, specifically Medicare, is just keep them out of the hospital, because the hospital sucks up all the money that we have in our government budget. So if you could just keep them out of the hospital, we'll just go ahead and just pay you to just stay on top of them, see them monthly, manage their medical conditions, just keep them out of the hospital, out of the ER specifically, And so these are all avenues that you can explore as a as a private, this is of course in a primary care, right? If you were thinking of opening an urgent care, then it's really just a matter of offering what people need in that particular community, right? So there's no point in going to a urgent care if they're just gonna have to refer me out to get stuff done, right? So an urgent care that could offer x-rays on site, ultrasounds on site, let's say in today 2022, COVID tests and flu tests and strep throat tests. The more you offer, the more enticing it is for me to go in there, and at an affordable rate, right? Like, because if some urgent cares are trying to, again, stay above the overhead expenses, so the prices are just a little bit extreme. So these are all things to think about. It depends what type of specialty you're wanting to open, but whether you open an urgent care, primary care, or a specialty care, either way, you're gonna need that. You're gonna need that medical director, and you're gonna have quite a bit of overhead expenses. In the next video, the part 2 of this, I'm going to talk about the better way to do it. All right, that's all. I'm gonna leave you with that cliffhanger. Love you guys.